Thank you, Richard. Have you got my slide deck? Good, thank you. So let me just reiterate and extend a warm welcome from IoTSF to all of our members and to some of our invited guests too. I have the honour of starting things off, and I start things off really by saying, let's just pause for a moment. We're going to get into the work of the working groups and the activities, but somewhat strangely, I'm going to say, let's just pause before we really start, because we have an announcement to make. So I start by saying, well, how are we doing as a membership body in this, our goal to help make it safe to connect and secure the IoT? Well, I think genuinely, hand on heart, I think we're doing great. For those of you who were here at the last plenary, you'll have heard me talk about that we'd reached more than 41,000 downloads of our member-produced materials at that point in time. And of course, that continues to go forwards. Last year, we had a special emphasis on looking at supporting standards and regulation, especially here in the UK in terms of the consumer regulation, which is coming through. And of course, we rounded out the year with our biggest and best conference where we had over 1,000 registrations. We really welcomed an international set of speakers and an audience, and those are just some of the things that we've been doing. Some of the members will talk about the work that we're actively doing now. So I would say that we're actually doing great, but we never stand still. We always ask ourselves, what more can we do to meet our mission? So we want to do more, and we can do more. So how do we do that? How do we help make it safe to connect, further proliferate best practice in IoT security around the world? But at the same time, how do we create value for our members? Because let's not forget, we're a member-driven organization, and we really do rely on volunteers and subscriptions. So we have to make sure it's consistent with what our members are looking for. So how do we support business opportunities, and how do we increase the status of our organization and our members? Can you flip forward, Richard? So I have an announcement to make today. It really follows on from the heads up that our chairman, Stephen Patterson, gave at the conference when he said this year, the second half of this year, we will be announcing the opening of the IoT Security Foundation international chapters. And that's what I'm doing today. It's a kind of a soft launch for members to start with, because we're piloting it first and foremost. There are a number of things that we're looking to achieve by opening up chapters, and I've listed a few of them on the slide there. They're actually on the website, but fundamentally it's about driving the proliferation of best practice in IoT security around the world, but at a local level. This really is a grassroots activity. And so what we look to do is drive the activity, but also build relationships too in regions around the world. So we think this is a milestone for what I call the blue team. Those of you who understand that will get that blue team is usually associated with defense, red team offense. So we think for the circle of influence that we have, this is a milestone moment. And of course, this is all part of change, which as we continue to evolve, will move us forwards. So Richard, next slide, please. So I'm announcing chapters today to our members and guests here, but it's interesting to note that this isn't a brand new consideration. We've been looking at this for about the last 2 or 3 years, and in the process we've looked at many different organizations, how they set up chapters, how they run it, what different models are available. And I can tell you that I personally have read many hundreds of pages, if not thousands, of policy statements, looked at dozens of organizations about how they deliver their chapter activity, and asking the question is, what is right for us, and not just us, but what our mission. And so, as I mentioned before, we decided that this really is a grassroots activity. We did look at it coming top down and looking at setting up chapters from a country-wide level, but we decided that the best way to do it was really leverage the goodwill and the interest of our members, so it's grassroots. The other thing that we've been looking at is, how do we make this as efficient as we possibly can? How do we give local autonomy to our chapters and our leaders? How do we keep the bureaucracy to the absolute minimum? And crucially, how do we enable it by keeping costs down? So we start off with some fundamental principles. We don't want to get people tied up in knots, reading lots of policy documents before they even get going. And you can see the image that I've got there. I really felt for this guy. You know, I can feel his almost a cathartic cry about, I just want to do something. Why am I so tied up? So this has been the guiding principle. Let's focus on enabling the activity, not the bureaucracy. And most importantly, let's make sure we only introduce those policies, the bureaucracy, if and when it's right. So we're really thinking about this as a maturity evolution, and we've tried to keep it, chuck everything out. Again, I've been slaving off the words of Jeff Day, working group, the best practice working group leader there, who, when they look to do the best practices, they try to take out as much as possible to keep it simple. So could you move on, Richard? So here we are. This is it. This is the invitation to our members. We would like to invite you to consider setting up a chapter in your region, wherever you are, outside Great Britain. We're going to run it first and foremost as a pilot phase. We've done as much thinking as we possibly can. We think there might be 1 or 2 wrinkles left, so we're asking, you know, somewhere between 3 or 6 chapters we'd like to see, and make sure we get those running well before we then open it up. And I think what's also really interesting, you see on the right-hand side, this butterfly diagram, what we refer to as the butterfly diagram. We used this in the early days of IoTSF, working with Beecham Research. One of our members, in fact, board members, was the original constructor of this diagram. Hayden Povey helped put this together. But I've put here a world of opportunity calls. And what I mean by that is not just to kind of springboard off of the international chapters, but where IoTSF has come from is we identified our priorities really at the board level and then through working group members. But now there are so many places which we're not touching, which we're asking our members to say, well, what do you think? What do you think needs attention? So whether you're in medical, healthcare, transport, national infrastructure, mining, space, whichever sector you're interested in, or even if you're interested to help promote training or even certification schemes, we're asking you and we're inviting you to consider chapters to help you. And I think that leads me into the next point, which I've underlined and I've made bold, because this is something that we always feel at IoTSF, but we don't usually talk so much about it. And it's really aligning with your interests, because we understand that the best way to drive this and have effect is to make sure that it aligns with your professional interests and your personal ambitions. So that's what we're asking again today. Think about how chapters can help you achieve some of the things in your business, in your professional career. Does it help improve your status? Does it help you network? Can you build business opportunities around this? Will it help you engage in local agencies near you, maybe even talking to government or institutions? Will it help you get funding for some projects? If that's the case, that's all good, because the important thing here is that we drive the security agenda and we make sure we build a strong team in doing so. So that's almost all I'm going to say to open up the invitation, but I would like to thank the steering board from IoTSF for working through this from time to time over the last couple of years, especially Stephen Patterson, Paul Dorey, Steve Babbage, and everybody else who's contributed to, Ollie Whitehouse. But I also like to thank the chapter project team who looked at the original documentation and helped us tweak it down to, actually, we've really cut it down to the bare minimum. And of course, some external advisors too, one of which I'm just about to mention. So could you roll on for me, Richard? So here it is. This is the final word. When I stand back and I look at this, it's very clear, the announcement we're making today and some we'll be making later, that IoTSF is evolving. I think, you know, as Richard said at the start, we will be 6 years old on the 23rd of September this year. And we've done amazing things so far, but we see much more opportunity and the organization is evolving. So when I spoke to this chap, Mike Hurst, who's actually very experienced in running chapters, he actually is in the security space, albeit physical security. And again, by virtue of an introduction one of our members made, I said to him, Mike, you know, can you tell me how chapters work in the organization that you represent? And he just stopped and paused and he said, John, chapters are the organization. And I thought that was quite inspiring. And I can see that that may be the next evolution of IoTSF. So if that sounds interesting to you, and I hope it does, or even giving you something to think about, please do consider it. You can find out more from the website. The pages went live today, IoTSecurityFoundation.org/chapters. There's an application form. There's a very lightweight process that goes behind it, again, where we try to minimize all that bureaucracy. And so you can do it directly from the website. So with that, thank you for your attention, and I will hand back to Richard.